And you're very welcome along to Off the Brawl on Off the Ball. I'm Ronan Mullen, joined as ever by Phil Egan for what is a very special edition of the show. I think we're joined by our first Olympic medalist, John Joe Nevin. John Joe, how are things?
Very good.
London 2012 there, the silver medal. I was watching the fights back yesterday, and I think it kind of passes people by how spectacular you were in that tournament, because like in most tournaments you kind of got better as the thing went along. Quarter-final against Valdez, which people will know Oscar Valdez has been a really good pro. And then the semi-final performance was amazing. What are your memories of that tournament now, looking back?
Yeah, as I said, the more the shows go on, the better I get. The better the opposition, the better I get. I went into that Olympic Games like just taking one fight at a time, really, to enjoy every moment. Because the first Olympics I was at in 2008, I was only 19. And I didn't enjoy it because I was so nervous and things. So I just went in to enjoy it, and I knew that if I enjoyed and I gave a good performance, I could reach the final and go the whole way.
And where do you keep your medal?
And the mother keeps that. I don't even see it nowadays.
Safe handling. Phil, what are your memories of that 2012?
Like the whole Olympics, the boxers always deliver, don't they? Well, okay, it didn't work out as well in Rio, but you know, just obviously had Katie Taylor there as well, and just the final was so nip and tuck between herself and Luke Campbell. Why do you think you said there you got better as the tournament went on, the quality got better? Is that just is it a case of you reacting better to the more pressure, the better you react?
Yeah, you see all these journeymen and things. You're going in more professional now and things, and they're there to survive. I think as you said there now, that the more pressure is on you, the better your natural instincts are and things, you know, your reflexes and all that is a lot better. Where if you're going in just to take a guy out and you know he's there to survive, then you know, you're doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing wrong. For me anyway, that's the case. For other boxers, I don't know, but for me, it's if I go into someone surviving, I start to make silly mistakes.
Yeah, and in terms of the 2019, the win over Freddie Fonseca, it must be frustrating because that was such a pivotal moment for you. That I know you talked after about how you had a certain amount of fights you wanted in 2020, and you said that an opponent pulled out. Very little you can do about it. Yeah. But in terms of working with Jim McDonnell now, he said the fitness was something that just was getting better and better. So where are you at now?
I'm flying it. Yeah. You know, with Jim, he's just tremendous. You know, you seen what way he had James DeGale. You know, he was always super fit. That's one thing I'll never doubt again when I get into the ring, because leading up to other professional fights when I was based in America, I was always doubting my fitness. Was I fit enough? Nowadays, when I'm with Jim, I know like I'm not prepared that I have to go 10 rounds. I can go 20 rounds if I want to. And I know like I got a little bit tired, well, not so much tired, but slowed down a little bit in the last fight. But that was, you know, through my head as well. That was kicking in. You know, that the natural thoughts of, oh, will I get tired? But I didn't need it. You know what I mean? I'm a lot fitter than what I usually do. Be fitter than what I was at the Olympic Games. You know, I'm flying away. He
said your fitness is at 120%. So where do you think you were before you started training with him?
Oh, I'd be lucky if I was at 70. At 70%. You know, I couldn't, when I came to the gym, he would always say to the other boxers that would go in against me, he's a class act for 6 rounds, then you have him. You know, he starts to tire then.
Did he say that in front of you?
He was telling the other boxers. Okay. He told me what he'd tell the other boxers then when our fitness is coming on. And then before the Freddie Fonseca fight, he had me doing 15 rounds with a welterweight.
Yeah.
And a good welterweight at that. And I was cruising, you know. I got out and did like 3 or 4 rounds of the bags afterwards, and it was good.
Just on the link up with Jim McDonnell, John Joe, how did that come about initially? Was that someone recommended to you, or was it just circumstances?
No, my manager at Ladow's is managing me, Ron Bodie. He used to manage James DeGale, and he knew Jim McDonnell through that. I didn't want being in America because they weren't trying to add to my style. What they were trying to do was take away what I had and change me into an American boxer. So I didn't want that. So I had a word. They were saying, "Oh, you're too much of a European style." Well, if you look at the Olympic Games and things, and there's been many of a world champion that has come from Europe.
Yeah.
They were trying to turn me into just doing all that American stuff, shoulder rolls and things. It's not my style. So I had a word with my manager and I said I want to be shipped back across the water. And he asked me, who do I want to be coached by? So he recommended Jim McDonnell. I went and spent 2-3 days with him, and that was it. I just said that this is the one.
Yeah, and he's a classic case of took an Olympic prodigy like James DeGale, medalist, and brought him to a world championship, 2 world championships in fact as a professional, so a perfect man for someone like John Joe to link up with.
Yeah, and that must have played in your mind as well, knowing that what he had done with James.
Yeah, and
you're probably thinking, if you could do the same with me, please.
Yeah, as I says, he's done it with James. He's had Reece Bellotti, Reece Bellotti as a boxer, as an amateur boxer, has won just 2 national titles for England, He wasn't like international standard, and he brought him to near like boxing for a European titles, which is tremendous, Jim has the tools to take me all the way, and I trust in him that I can.
Yeah, and we might circle back to yourself in a second, John Joe, but just mention the Olympics and Olympics 2020 coming up now, obviously. Do you keep an eye on the amateur scene at all over here?
Yes, and to last Olympics, like, so dreadful, weren't it? Like, with the case with Michael Conlon getting robbed and the Billy Walsh exit and things, that kind of...
Yeah.
It kind of stalled the Irish boxing for a while, didn't it? And hopefully this Olympic Games, we can see a lot of improvement, but the last ones were dreadful.
Yeah, and we were chatting to Billy Walsh on the show a couple of weeks ago. He's obviously Team USA now, and there's a very real chance that Irish boxers will be coming up against him now in Tokyo. Like, how big a loss was Billy Walsh in your experience, considering what he did for you?
He was a very big loss. Billy wasn't just a coach. Billy was like, he could man to man. If you're having problems at home, he sits you down, you clear the air and things, and all stuff like that. So he was good. He'd work with everyone. Zor Anti, a very, very technically good coach, one of the best in Europe, or matter of fact the world. But he hadn't got what Billy had. Billy was able to. He's more or less a manager as well. Coach manager. America hadn't won a medal since like 3-4 Olympics, and the year he goes there to start picking up medals, and Ireland go without.
Yeah,
so it just shows you,
And we were just talking off air as well about Tyson Fury last week, and I was reading 2007. Yourself and himself boxed into was it Poland?
Poland, yeah.
What was that experience like? Did you know then that he was going to make something of himself?
I knew he was good. Didn't think he'd go this far, but believe it or not, Tyson was a really shy.
Didn't sing?
Man, no singing. You barely get 2 words out of him, and then all of a sudden...
This is at that camp?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
He grows up, and before that camp even, as a junior boxer, I'd go away with the Irish team. He'd be with the GB team, but we were kind of close, the GB Irish team. And he was never a big talker now. So something happened overnight.
Yeah.
And performance-wise, like, you're a master boxer yourself, and I'm sure there'll be cases in your pro career where you're going to have to fight in the front foot like he did. What did you make of that change of tactics? Because I don't think many people have seen him fight like that before.
I think, obviously he got the job done, but he had felt Deontay Wilder's power before that. He knew what he was like strength-wise and things, so he knew he had this 3 extra stone on top of him, to lean on him, tire him out. And if you get someone that's 3 stone heavier than you, leaning on you for 1-2 rounds,
Yeah, it sucked the life out of him.
Yeah, and that's it. And then he complains about carrying the 40 pound of a suit, so, all this.
What do you think, if there's a third match, which looks like it's going to be, is it going to be a continuation, do you think, from...
I think so.
From what we saw?
He's too big, too slick. He won the first fight. To me, he won the first fight.
Yeah, I think we all had him down to win the first fight.
Yeah, he won the first fight. I wasn't expecting that he'd win it in this style, the last fight, but he's flying it now. He's to me, he's the best heavyweight in the world,
Fury.
He's better than Joshua, he's better than Wilder. But you still need to keep your feet on the ground. You don't need to be saying silly stuff. And he's walked himself into some situations he shouldn't have over his mouth some days. With women boxing and stuff like that. You just need to keep a lid on some stuff.
Yeah. And you mentioned
he is. I don't know where you stand on role models, and sometimes people get themselves such a high profile that become role models. They didn't ask for it, but whether they like it or not, they are role models. And Tyson Fury has come out of the situation he was in. You mentioned some of the comments he made, but now he's seen as this shining light for people who've suffered from mental health.
Yeah, and definitely, and kids are looking up to him nowadays.
So now he has almost like a duty of care that he has to watch.
Put a lid on it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Fury Wilder 3 is basically done. Phil, Joshua Pulev, as expected, is done for.
It's not as exciting, is it?
Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Yeah.
That'll bring a bit of glamour to it. But
be more entertaining than watching Tottenham anyway.
Do you think Joshua's going to have to basically do a job here and look impressive, or is it all about the W?
Just about getting the win, isn't it? Because that's what he did for the rematch with Ruiz. And people said it wasn't pretty, but he had to get the title back, and he will obviously want to impress, because there is still question marks over him now, because the way he had to change for if he had finished that fight, the first fight in New York, when he put Ruiz down in the third round, then his stock would have gone up considerably in New York that night. But the fact that he was beaten, he had to. In fairness, he was gracious in defeat. He didn't make any excuses and came back, outboxed Ruiz for the rematch. Pulev, he's that level below the likes of Fury and Wilder and Joshua, so it's a fight he should win. But I don't know, like what is seen as a good performance? Does he have to stop him early?
That's it. Like, if he goes in thinking that way, I think he could come unstuck. He just has to go out there and get the win. My only concern is when you're fighting in front of whatever it's going to be, 60,000 people, you probably feel like you have to put on a bit of a show.
Yeah, but he fought Parker.
Yeah.
In front and he didn't put on a show as such. He just outboxed him that night. That was kind of the first real sign where you
box.
Yeah, you realise that Joshua knows, like, he's gone up to the next level. He can't just get lads out of there in a couple of rounds.
Mm-hmm. And he is relatively new to the game compared to someone like yourself, John Joe. He came to boxing quite late, but he was at your games in 2012. Did you come across him much, or what did you make of him during that tournament?
I didn't really come across him much, but he was in the tournament. He should have been beaten one of the earlier fights. I think it was against a Cuban at one stage. He won the final. I think he won the final, but he lost to he should have lost to the Cuban and probably one more fight.
Yeah,
no, a long way. But
yeah, there was some contention around the final as well. But that whole games in retrospect was a special one for Ireland, because 2008 was what it was, but it was really just Kenneth Egan that went over there and got his medal. Whereas 2012 felt like a breakout, like yourself, Paddy, Michael Conlon. Was that a great time out of the ring, or were you just kind of focused on doing the business?
No, we're trapped in our own little bubble, inside the village. We knew nothing that was going on outside, but when we get to the arena, compared to the Beijing Olympics, there was probably a few flew over for the Beijing Olympics. It was more like home. We're at the London Olympics. There was a lot of Irish there.
Yeah, which obviously, what's that like in terms of, it goes back to what we were saying earlier about upping the pressure. Do you feel more pressure in a good way if there's a bigger crowd there for you?
Yeah, I suppose. You get a lot more nerves out of it. Well, I do anyways. But I suppose that it can be in a good way and a bad way, because as you says about Joshua, you can get, if he gets caught up in a fight, you can get unstuck. But if you let the crowd get to you too much and you walk into a fight, it's
too emotional.
Yeah.
What's it like that ring walk when you can just see all the tricolours around?
It's the best feeling ever. It's incredible. When I was going out, every time, if you look back on the Olympics, every fight I had, I was coming out smiling, because I was enjoying it, every minute of it. And then the fans will give you a boost as well. When you come through, like, you come from the warm up area where it's really quiet.
Yeah.
Then you come in and the whole stadium just erupts.
What would Billy say to you? Billy Walsh obviously was in charge back then. Would he say to you, lap it up?
it would soak up the energy at the start and things, but the game plan with Billy Walsh was always one round at a time. Don't be thinking about the outcome. Just take one round, 3 minutes, win the first 3 minutes. That was it.
I remember after that semi-final and your interview just out of the ring, and I remember thinking, this guy is the best Irish boxer I've ever seen. Like, the talent was ridiculous in the semi-final. And then the final, because he came up short there, like, people, that was actually a close run thing, and you and Luke Campbell had been fighting, had really close contests all the way back. So, like, that was a flip of a coin. Another night, if he had fought again the next day, you might have beat him. So, like, how do you look at Luke Campbell? How do you look at that sort of dynamic now?
Yeah, it's look how far he's progressed. It just shows you about the look of the professional game. I've had so many injuries and then out of the ring stuff, and look, he's fought for, I think it's 2 world titles now.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, and there's nothing between us. I definitely, if I ever progress and fight for a world title someday, I want to fight. I want to have one more go at Luke. Even that he's a bigger weight, you know, we can sort something out. But it's just over 12 rounds. I'd like to have one more go.
Yeah, it'd be a great promotion as well. It'd be very easy to sell.
Yeah.
You mentioned the injuries, John Joe, and the very high profile one was the issue you had with your legs and the rods in your legs. I think you fought a couple of times with those.
Yeah, four fights with them in.
And is that a big release now, not having to worry about them?
Yeah, and you know, people often ask me, how's, every time you meet someone, like, new person to start talking about your boxing, how's the legs? That's like 7 years ago now. And they'll be asking you, how's the legs? Legs is better than ever, you know.
Yeah.
As I say, the bone, once it fits back, you know, they're stronger than ever.
How could you describe to somebody who's never had rods in their legs what it's like to try and box with them in?
It was crazy. When I'd be training, you know, at the end of every session, the metal was, you could see it coming through the front of the leg, you know. It was that bad. I couldn't run with them. You obviously probably saw it in the documentary when I tried to run. The leg was swelling up and the rods were pumping out through the skin. So I had to go back to the doctors. He said if you weren't an athlete, it wouldn't make sense to get them out, you know.
Okay.
But because I was an athlete, they rushed it forward to get, you know, the bones was already healed, take the rods out. So when I took the rods out, that meant being at least another 2 months out of the ring, but you know, with the stitches and things and healing, you know, the fresh wounds again, so you'd let it set back. So really what it was out of the ring was 4 months with the leg break, and then with the rods, I'd say up to 6 months of my career. And then, you know, with fitness, it's probably a year overall.
Yeah. Because
took away
like,
with the legs.
As an amateur, the one thing people would point to, not just in Ireland but worldwide, you became such a notoriously impressive fighter because of your legs, and that was your movement, getting in and out of range. So that must have been a real concern for you at the time, thinking, you know, this is my biggest asset. It
was. I'll never forget it when I come up from the operation. The doctor was standing at the bottom of the bed, and he said, "Your boxing career, John Joe, is done." You know, and I often wanted to go over to that doctor, you know, with the belt that I've just won, and just say, "What did you say to me before?" But you know, it's the worst feeling ever. You know, it's something that you love doing, something that is my living. You know, that's what I do for a living. You know, was getting took away from me, and over what, like, of 20 minutes of just nonsense, something stupid. It was the worst feeling ever, and thankfully I came through it.
Yeah, and it was captured in that documentary, and I think that documentary ends with your fight at the 3 Arena on the Matthew Macklin card. So just after that, John Joe, if you can just fill in the blanks. So you were still in Philadelphia at that time. That was your main base. Have you still got any ties over there?
Yeah, I have a big following over there. So yeah, if there's a big show comes up there, they want me back there again, you know, because I sell a lot of tickets out there. But the last time I was there was on the John O'Carroll Tevin Farmer show.
Yeah.
Katie was on the same night. And Tevin Farmer's from Philly, and I sold like over $80,000 worth of tickets.
Yeah.
He sold $20,000, so it just shows you how much Irish is out there. And then Eddie Hearn had the cheek to not put me on TV, so I wasn't too impressed with that. So I don't think I'll be doing anything for Eddie.
No, I remember that
anytime soon.
I was there, and you came on after the main event, and most of the people stayed in the arena because most of the people were there to see you.
Eddie kept coming to the dressing room because I was a swing bout. If there's a stoppage in this one, where was there going to be a stoppage? You know, Katie had a tough fight ahead of her, and Jono was obviously going to go the distance with Tevin, so there was no stoppage.
No, it was an unfortunate one because there were definitely a big contingent there to see you and a good Irish representation for Katie as well. But in terms of Philadelphia, like training over there, like we've spoken to Jason Quigley about, he trained with Manny Robles in Los Angeles and then he went to Sheffield. Now he's with Andy Lee. So he's kind of picked up different little bits. Like he would have been a boxer like yourself, but he's sort of learned how to fight inside with Robles. Then with Ingle, it was a bit more about the switch hitting. So did you pick up any useful things?
Yeah, you'll always pick up stuff. Defence work, mostly in defence work. But any of this up on your toes boxing stuff that we like to do back here, or I like to do, that was out. You know, if they start, what are you doing? You're too upright. What are you talking upright? You know, seeing the best do it. You know, you've watched the Prince Nassim, Hamid, Joe Calzaghe, all on their toes boxing. They don't like any of that. They want just sitting down, and you know, if you can take a shot on the gloves, it's better than taking a step back to them, which I don't think.
It's just that's the way they want to see fights over there. You said a few minutes ago about you described boxing as something that you love. Was there ever a point though where it wasn't there, and do you feel now it's back, like that love of boxing? It seems like you and Jim McDonald have kind of struck up something that this could go somewhere.
When I was in America, I was fighting. There were fights, but there weren't fights, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of sat back, looked at how Luke Campbell was progressing, Oscar Valdez that we mentioned earlier, and these guys I've beaten. See how they're pushed on, and then where I was like, is it worth it? You know, you sit down, have a think about it, called up the manager, says, the Philly is not for me, you know. So either we sort something or that's, you know, what's the point in it? But we found a good man in Jim McDonald. And
how would you describe your style now, John Joe, to people who mightn't have seen you since you fought amateur? So are you still very much the boxer, or have you... Because one thing I've noticed is, in your last couple of fights under Jim, is you're going to the body a lot more than you probably would have as an amateur. So is that a tactic from him?
That's the tactic from him. You know, if you kill the body, and, you know, it's like sucking diesel from a car. You start hitting the body early on, all of a sudden they start to tire. And that's what I'm learning from Jim. So early on you'll see the odd head shot and that, but it's mostly sink them body shots in earlier on.
We mentioned that you were coming on. We got a few texts in. One person was asking you about the Amir Khan thing. What was that about?
I was going to go professional after the 2012 Olympics. Went over to Amir Khan. He flew us over. He was doing his own promotional thing at the time. Sat down, put a contract together. It was a good contract. So he flew back to... we went on RTE on the Late Show. And we announced it. We hadn't got the contract over for the sign. Do you know what I mean? We didn't sign the contract. We just saw it, but it wasn't signed. And I got talking to Billy Walsh and things, and I fancied... Billy said to me, John, you know you're only missing the European medal, and they're next year. And I started to think about it. I want to be the first and male to ever win the collection of medals. So I said I'll wait one more year, and he wasn't too pleased.
Oh, so it was more yourself. You just decided to step out of that.
Yeah.
And what was he like? Did he give you the impression that he was? Because I remember actually before this even became a thing that he was doing the Olympics for the BBC. And they were asking him who were his top fighters from the tournament, and he name-checked you before Campbell even. So it wasn't just bluster from him. He definitely was an admirer of yours.
Yeah, but he was a good guy, but I don't think he's too pleased with me now, is he?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was made a laughing stock, wasn't he, where he went on RTE and all.
And I think he's probably going to start wrapping up his career. But in terms of yourself, John Joe, 31 now, but didn't take much punishment as an amateur, and you're still quite fresh as a professional, so a few years left. What's the dream? Like, what's the end goal here?
The world title. You know, I have to get the world title. I've set out to do it, and I have to achieve it. Anything I've set out to do as an amateur, I've done it, so I can't stop now. And I'm 31, but there's guys that's 29, 28, 27 that's put a lot more mileage in than me. You know, I've had a good amateur career. Then I had a year out, as I was saying, these little minor setbacks and things. That kind of gave me time to refuel. Also, so I've had a good service. I don't take much punishment, as you've seen in the amateur game and the professional game. I don't take an awful lot of punishment, so I'm fresh, you know.
Yeah, and weight-wise, are you settled now at this?
I'm super featherweight is my weight, yeah.
That's the world title target?
That's it.
Well, it's exciting times anyway. Hopefully we need to get a big show over here, John Joe, so yourself and Katie and Michael just get something together and we'll get the dream team back together.
That's what we're hoping to get done someday, but sure, hopefully I'm televised this time with Eddie Hearn.
That's true. And I mentioned people were texting in. Karen was wondering, what have you made of Michael Conlon as a professional so far?
Very good. Very good. He's getting looked after really well. He's with the right promotional team, I think, which is Top Rank. He's got a good team behind him, and also he's taken that move back towards Irish style as well. You know, he's training with, I think it's Adam Booth now, is it? Or?
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously Adam Booth is perfect for him. Yeah.
And he's back in action for his customary St Patrick's weekend card, Phil. But this weekend we have Irish action, John O'Carroll against Scott Quigg. And you mentioned before we started that most people are picking Quigg as favourite.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to see what people were saying in the build-up to it, and most people expected to go the distance, but Quigg to get the decision or even a late stoppage. But you know John O'Carroll's going to have the engine to go the whole way, so I think wouldn't be surprised if it was a split decision. But the only worry for Jono is, well, he's done 3 fights, 12 rounds, and he's only won 1 of them.
Yeah. It kind of shows how far he's come, though, that he's headlining a show on Sky Sports this week, and you saw him up close this time last year, John Joe. Are you impressed with him? Did you give him a good chance this weekend?
Yeah. I've also had the pleasure of sharing a ring with Jono. He's people is looking at it. Scott will be too strong for him. I don't think so. I think that as you mentioned, Jono's engine is good. He mightn't have the one punching power that Scott has. But Scott hasn't had really a proper bout since the Frampton fight.
Yeah.
He hasn't. You know, he hasn't been under that much pressure. He hasn't been under the lights of the main event. You know, let's see how he can deal with it now. He's going to have Jono in his face for the whole 12 rounds. He knows that. I'm not too sure has he got it anymore, Scott, but you can prove me wrong some of the nights.
That would be my feeling on it. Like, I've nothing against Scott Quigg, but I just feel I'm not sure he has much left in the tank, and as John Joe says, John is going to be in his face all night, so I don't know if he has the...
He's obviously gone back to Joe Gallagher. Is this the last throw of the dice? Just go back to the old team and see can he get... Because on the line, basically, whoever wins will probably get a world title shot soon. You'd imagine if Quigg wins, he'd get a world title shot sooner. But whoever loses is going to have to basically go back down the ladder and might have to go down in levels to build themselves back up.
I think if Scott loses, he could retire.
Yeah, so that's what's at stake.
Absolutely.
It should be a good one, though.
Yeah.
It's going to be high energy, a lot of punches thrown. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and just one bit of news we should mention, Phil, that DAZN have announced that they're coming into the UK Irish market, which could be a bit of a game changer. Like we talk about pay-per-view and some of the fights that are a bit questionable to be on pay-per-view, but they're basically coming in with a €5 prize plan into this part of the world. So that could change everything.
That could, and give John Joe a chance to get on DAZN.
That's
those DAZN dollars flying around.
But it's obviously they're a big draw when they sign Canelo. That's like he's their cash cow. But there's so much boxing out there that there is an appetite for people to pay subscriptions and not their one-off big pay-per-view. So like say Fury Wilder, like you're paying nearly €30 or whatever, but if you're getting decent fights every weekend, you won't mind paying the subscription. There's so much boxing out there.
And it is going to get interesting when John Joe's best friend Eddie comes up against. So he's got the Sky Sports deal and he's got the DAZN deal, and there's going to be a conflict of interest there because, for example, Canelo's fight against Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith is going to be on DAZN rather than Sky Sports. So I'm sure Adam Smith's going to be looking at it like, you know, how do you help us out here? So that could get a bit interesting in the political side of things.
Boxing and politics, no way.
Never. One more question here from Darren on Twitter. John Joe, who was John Joe's favourite fighter growing up?
Oh, I've had so many. The Prince Nassim.
Oh yeah,
probably the Prince Nassim
over there.
Look. Yeah.
He was probably my all-time favourite.
What did you like about him?
Just the confidence he had, you know, the ring walks, the confidence, and the part that he could, you know, he looked off balance, but he could punch with either hand. You'd think he was off balance, you know. All of a sudden he's coming in, jumping in with left hooks, right uppercuts, left uppercuts, and they were all power punches. But he was so elusive.
Yeah.
Have
you met him?
I've met him as a person. Yeah, he's a good person, and he's still as confident as ever.
He'd still tell you he's making a comeback. Like even
he'd probably say he's making super featherweight or featherweight as well. Probably eats that every day in Burger King now.
Absolutely. And Phil, in terms of favourite fighters, it's an anniversary today. Joe Calzaghe against Jeff Lacey.
Yeah, that was such a. Think of the build up to that fight. How Lacey was coming over and he was going to do a number on Calzaghe, and Lacey was never the same after that. And that was a free to air fight as well. It was on ITV. It's a fight I still watch back the odd time just because. Anyone that ever doubted Calzaghe, like they just thought, you know, this is a guy that he's afraid to step out of his comfort zone. And then obviously after the Lacey fight, that got him a bigger name in America. He went over to America, got some big wins. But I always liked watching him.
And he kind of speaks to your style, John Joe, where he wasn't necessarily a slugger. Like he was someone who liked to box in the back foot, make people miss, and counter punch. So I'm sure you were a fan of his as well.
Yeah, and he also threw a lot of punches, but. I don't throw a lot of punches. No. I like to save the energy. But Joe did throw an awful lot of punches.
I think he threw 1,000 punches in that fight against Lacey.
Sometimes he was accused of slapping as well, where there was no
power to him.
There was no power, but at times I think there was times in fights he'd take the mick out of his opponents where he'd pop up behind them and then to turn around and he just hit them a few slaps. Like so, he enjoyed his career and he was an entertainer. But, definitely, if people haven't watched that fight for a while, it's worth checking out.
Yeah, and lastly, actually, Sean on Twitter just wondering, John Joe, is there a performance that John Joe is most proud of?
Beating the world champion, the Cuban.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was my all-time favourite. You know, I put on a show that day. I went into the fight just to enjoy it. Those guys, you know, telling me he is class and that, no normal people coming up in the stadium before the fight. John Joe, it would have been nice to see you box Campbell in the final.
Really?
Writing me off beforehand, you know. I don't know, it just happened. Everything I did was perfect.
Is that the kind of thing in the moment when you're in the ring, you know, right, this is really going well, or is it after the fact and you watch it back, you're like, that was...
No, I was smiling through it. Sure, I did the, as they call it, the Mullingar shuffle, you know, halfway through the third round. I don't think the Cuban was too impressed to hit me one or two after. But, you know, as the fight was progressing and going on, you know, I just, instead of getting tired, I was getting more. I was hoping for the fight never to end. It was going that well. But that's definitely my all-time favourite fight.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully you have plenty more performances like that as a pro. You did everything as an amateur, so I'm sure there's plenty more as a professional. Thanks for coming in, John Joe.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks to Phil and to producer Alex as well. We'll be back next week.